Peace. Welcome to Super Heru Radio. I'm your host, Aseer the Jugateer, along with my co-host, the leader the Empress of 10,000 Years, Radio-Aseer. More. You, everyone, all the human families on the planet Earth, want to say peace, love, and light, and our blessings and prayers and well wishes and positive violet light energy goes out to all of those affected by the so-called Frankenstorm they're referred to as Sandy. We definitely want to give thanks and praise to those people who are still surviving and still finding a way through it. It makes the perseverance of these people, of our people that are going through situations like that, always having to overcome the obstacle, really is creating a place where we can rise above all the needless politics that seem to plague us at this particular time, because instances like that make all these things that are happening, such as the so-called election, these things or whatever, very trivial. In retrospect, the fact that an election or any election in this country could take place in the systematic way that it's happening, with all the disenfranchisement, if that's a word, but you know what I mean, of all of the different groups of people who are making it or have found it very difficult to actually do what they're supposed to do, you know. And unfortunately, this becomes an instance where people become too caught up in trying to fix something that in its present state cannot be fixed. Like, there's no way a country like the United States, where really there is no country like the United States. As I would say that's not true. There are countries like the United States, but there's no country that was specifically founded the way that the United States was and usurped the way that the United States was over a succession of years, you know. We'll get into some of that. But on another tip, all of, like I said, the reflective, symbolic things that are happening, such as a quote-unquote Mormon versus an African American at odds and at play with each other, really demonstrates, like what we've been saying, it demonstrates an active or reactive view of how people perceive nationality and culture in this specific time. I mean, you could ask even people who deal with nationality every day what the deal is. I mean, you have aspects of the movement today that are more specifically, but based on some understanding of what the prophet was trying to put out there, trying to make it like he was really like urging people to vote now. You know what I'm saying? And that is what I mean. It becomes this justification where, because we're not seeing something work or manifest or cannot bring about an aspect of unity within a specific time period, we are trying or striving to create the type of balance within our life that can somehow be reflective as to how we see ourselves and therefore our community around us. If the so-called community around us has deteriorated to such a degree that there are now arguments in which there's been a total 360 of what was happening, let's say 25 years ago. You think about 25 years ago when you were first coming into the aspect of the consciousness that you were coming into. Those people who were 25 years old, this would be, in your case, this would be, think about when you were coming into around understanding of yourself around 13. You know what I mean? Between 13 and like 16 and 17. Some of y'all might be that now. But within that time period, something was active within you that chose to activate and purposely investigate aspects of your culture and society that most people have deemed non-existent or even mythic. And so the preoccupation to prove it to be real to oneself then creates the apparatus to do so. So because you want, or we want, a specific idea of understanding what Moorish culture is, this is now a time where we are going out and seeing it in everything. Yet, the same way we see it like that, the people who have been hiding the secret and all of that, who are basically paid liars or oathed liars in the presence of saying that they want to conceal that truth by denying an access and saying basically that their forefathers and everybody did what needed to be done to propel situation for civilization forward. Be it that as it may, the end never justifies the means when you're dealing with a specific culture based upon a nihilistic view of what they perceive as race, what we perceive as quote-unquote spirituality has been now orchestrated as religion into a context that allows people to perceive things based upon what they think the things are, more so than what they know the things are. Therefore, this is a manipulation of the age of Pisces, the leftover energy of that, the water inside the vessel being poured out, and the vessel itself. The creation of vessels and the creation of monsters in the traditional sense has always been a part of human culture, going all the way back to, let's say, what we call the first humans or the first people, original people. And in that, being that they were always in the image of that which was created, therefore the soul that inhabited them was different than any other being in creation due to the fact that this was the being that which the unified manifestation of the essence of the Creator blew life into and raised up from essence nothing. Same way the creation, only thing is within this nothing exists the soul. Therefore, a lot of the external powers that a lot of the other so-called pre-humans and then post-humans exist or can exhibit, superhuman strength and all these different things, were not necessary because we have or had within us the very thing that separated us from everything else. Yet, in order to access that thing, we have to find love in everything else to truly access the soul and find out what it is. So to create a system, a perpetual system of self-perpetual depopulation, one has to break away or chip away at the very thing that makes them unique. And so the more identified you are with something that can be categorized, written down, cataloged, put into a file, downloaded in a computer, uploaded into an iPod or something else, creates that image. So it's interesting that on the day of Franklin's quote-unquote stone goes down was also the day a year ago that this dude Jobs died. I don't know if anybody said that. Also the fact that he was somebody who invested in a company called Pixar that was having disputes over something, a property they had called what they call Monsters Inc. or Monsters University or whatever. And that issue was plaguing him up, I guess, to his death. So in that, there's a monster in it named Sully, which is, Sully looked over a little demon baby who was named Boo. And Boo, because she wasn't scared of the monsters or was on a level, she basically had a bigger monster in her. Just like the baby in Incredibles that turned into a shapeshifter and fire and reptilian and stuff like that. So all of these are allegories of getting people to disassociate themselves from children and babies. If you notice, there's been a huge preponderance of child killing and open killing of children in movies, and the presumed or implied killing of children in different movies now more than ever. And this is, again, to desensitize the human from humanity or humane acts to perpetuate this idea of self-aggrandizement through materialism, which bodes that there's not enough. Materialism is a structure that basically says it's not enough for everybody. Only certain people can live in opulence. So systems have to be initiated to perpetuate that. So in the depopulation program, which all wars, especially wars after World War I or during World War I, all wars are about depopulation control. I would say even going back to the French Revolution and everything else. Because all those wars in old Europe did was get rid of all the original people, most of the black people that was there, and then remold the structure by those so-called Caucasian slaves that were now being raised up in the serfdom. Because a lot of the quote-unquote blacks were leaving and going back into the places of their ancestors, which was either America or over here, or quote-unquote Africa, which, again, is one and the same, essentially, but based on to us, but to them it's always been broken up. So what we're, again, talking about structurally is how these societies begin to organize themselves around this new modern perception of what the society is going to be. There's a book you could get called Cavaliers and Yankees, and it basically is a passage where it talks about the change of what the perception of American was post-1770, 1791, and then after, and then specifically saying that not only the political character changed of the so-called American as he's perceived as people in other lands, but also the appearance, meaning that it was more now Caucasian people going over there representing what an American was or being citizens of the so-called United States that most people in the other world didn't even know existed. They didn't even know what that was. So they were seen as stateless people by other nobilities and principalities that existed in other lands, and they therefore could be enslaved, which a lot of them were. But this slavery was called Christian slavery in history, and is therefore put under the ideology that the people who were enslaved were specifically Christian. But Christian was just a amoral or word of art that was used to express any Caucasian that was coming over from the times of the Crusades as someone trying to implant themselves in the land of the Moors. So these Christians or Circassians or serfs or immigrants or pioneers or homesteaders or Puritans, or, you see what I'm saying, or Amish or Quaker. Quakers were just Rosicrucians, basically, who did not partake in the slavery of their own people as well as other quote-unquote races. And they were seen as being peace because of the fact that there was Moors from, again, the Sutra Order of the Rose that was now over here, who were already familiar with the rose magic and all of that, based upon their admittance to the secrets of the Kitawa Society. And so this masonry that was already built upon by us over here in terms of being the mound builders, like, think about that. If masonry is based on the builders and we are a descent from the mound builders, then that means that masonry is then not only based on us, but it's based on the process in which we created things or create things. And so now the earthen mounds that we create are the ones within the places in the world that people understand what these things are, because we are a dispersed people. That quote-unquote Yakubian experiment really took a lot out of what was going on because it really gained fuel, I think, between a certain time. If you look at the span of time that they said that it took man to get into the place that it is now, and the span of time that they say that the quote-unquote Neanderthals was here and then died out, you see, it was more or less the same thing. If they died out, then that means what? Where did they go? Where did the last Neanderthal go? And if so, where was the baby that Neanderthal gave somebody else? Now, based on their beast-like ferocity, and the climate and positions that a lot of these people were in or put in terms of the subjugation and how they were cultured over a certain amount of time. There were others who had escaped and found a more civilized way of life when they came up under the mystic Turks. These people were called Janissaries and Mamelukes, and they were taught an aspect of civilization and given Islam. Whereas on the other side of the world, the so-called Sephardim, which were, again, Moors of places like the Alhambra, Granada, Malaga, Salamanca, Corsica, Sardinia, Venice, all these places that they was at, they had Jews with them. They was Hebrews, so they had Jews, or their Caucasians basically functioned under the Hebrew system, but they couldn't be Hebrews because they weren't Moors, so they created the Talmud or whatever for them to build on, and then that was given to them as a way to establish their law. But the Talmud is not a book of law. The book of law that they deal with is the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. So anything after that, the Talmud, according to their own shit, is basically something that they should be dealing with, because really that's something that was given to them by us, or they learned from us when they was under the bondage of us in quote-unquote Babylon, under Ham, Moor, Ra, Bay. So again, we're dealing with a specific structure that plays out in a lot of the stuff that's going on now. The same way we was dealing with scalar technology back then is, and in places like Moor and Atlantis that you hear the mythic legends of, that whenever you see movies of, you're nowhere around, but all of the images and the statues and stuff be looking like black people, or zoomorphic images of black people, or things like that. You have to understand that creating a theater and a stage where all of the props and everything else is based on you, but the big secret, the joke, is that you don't know it. So you're on a perpetual Truman show in your life, especially as the original person. Like, only people who are melanated, meaning people who are darker skin on this planet, when you're around a majority of what they call Caucasian people, you know what it's like, especially when they've never been around one of you before. But when they're around us like that, we're not like that. Some of the hardest niggas will bitch up when the white woman or the white man come around and try to be cool. Just because there's an aspect of us or in those people that don't want to upset this person or make this person feel a certain way, because we know and they know how they are. So if we're talking about a system in which only a certain group of people, like think about this, they want you to share the blame on everything in terms of all of the pollution and crime and all this other stuff. Yet these are the people who created and released all the pollution laws, restriction laws under Nixon, Reagan, and Carter, under Carter, Nixon, and Reagan, or Nixon, Carter, and Reagan. These are the people who, under Reagan, outsourced everything and sent it overseas, where everybody's in India. Dell is in India, IBM's in India, Apple's in India. These stores over here, these bases over here are just really clearinghouses for them to come get their bread and to launder money. All of their major operations is already overseas because they've already adopted a foreign corporation status to the United States. Because if they were domestic in the United States in their status of a corporation, they would do it, if they were smart, they would do it in Nevada. That's where everybody do it, either Nevada or whatever. But if you're trying to do a credit card company or something like that, insurance, you got to do that shit in Delaware. Because there's specific rackets already set up in play for you, everybody to get their take off you from the top down. That's the trickle-down theory, also known as voodoo economics, that was initiated by Ramses, a.k.a. Reagan. I call him Ramses because that's what they called him specifically in their view. We know that's not his comedian name, but that's how they view him. In terms of, in their pantheon, in terms of they demigod ship. So these wars or whatever that they fighting now are really basically zoning wars to see what they're going to do. So like I said, on the same day that Steve Jobs died, 2011, same day the so-called storm hit. But when you look at the initial report where the storm was going up the East Coast, it was farther away and going further out, right? But 2 hours after that, you see one where it's a new graph where now it's going straight into the eastern coast, specifically, the places that were hit the hardest. But in that, what we also got to know is that there's been these things called chemtrails that they've been spreading for a long time. And like I said, based upon the, what is this thing called in it? Brontium, and there's another thing that will come to me. But based upon the chemical that's in that hardens up aspects of the ionosphere, what it does is when natural storms come in, if you can imagine a tub or a glass box of water, right? And at the bottom of the water there's like a drain. And then you start turn on or there's like a little fan. You turn it on and then you watch this great funnel, you know what I mean, in this glass box, right? So you're watching this water turn into almost like a whirlpool or whirlwind, right? So imagine now that the glass box is the chemtrail and the spinning water is the actual real storm. That's what the chemtrail is doing in terms of where they want to push it. You see what I'm saying? Because remember, it hardens aspects of their ionosphere based upon the brontium and the other thing that will come to me later, seeded in it. Which then means that perpetually wherever the chemtrail is sprayed or moved, that's a place where things are very hardened in the sun-core atmosphere, which then allows whatever current that's in there to be moved over. This is in some stuff in the quote-unquote Intel people, they refer to it as TTA, which is Tesla Tech Array Technology. And all of this stuff is based on infrasound, meaning the sound, the subatomic waves within the sound is what makes the sound. So the idea is to somehow manipulate the subatomic particles within the sound octave, right? That allows them to project aspects into the ionosphere, harden it up, and then block out certain things. So that way there's almost like a wall between this thing where it would have naturally dissipated. Now it has nowhere else to go but this way. You understand? Coming in a clockwise motion, you see these things due to the underlying what they call sonic undulations, which are the abstract imagery effects of these Tesla array devices going off. So HAARP, I mean, that's they've been doing that, but that's really the stuff that they was able to kind of like jury rig themselves. You know what I mean? And a lot of people in Alaska is like really beefing about that shit now. It's becoming a real problem. People can't sleep. People committing suicide, all types of crazy shit. So people have been trying to vandalize it, blow it up. People are not really having it. You know what I'm saying? So that's just that. But you got to remember, back in the days, it's the history lesson. Back in the days, Tesla, when he was trying, he came up with or he was able to come up with this technology or be able to alliterate it to people. But at the time, these niggas was really just founding and really forming the industrial revolution, industrial age, and a lot of the plots that would turn out to be the Great Depression and stuff like that. So they wasn't really they wanted to mess with them, but they didn't really want to put like major dough into the niggas, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of people like laughed them off kind of. And then Einstein was a hater because Einstein used to be his clerk. But just in case, being Einstein was a Jew brought over through the paperclip thing, the pre-paperclip thing, because the same Jews that they smuggled out before the war, that was scientists and stuff like that, is the same line that they basically follow when they brought the Nazis out after the war. So Einstein, being an agent like that of the army, and basically was part of his job was to gather intel on all this stuff, this Tesla stuff. So being that nobody wanted to put no money into him, he basically went to the Soviets. And so they broke them off a little bit, took some of the technology and kept it moving. So that's why they technologically was able to get so far advanced, because they was also between the years of the 50s, 60s, 70s, up until the mid-80s, was basically trying to, they was using a lot of scale technology to increase their wheat harvest and stuff like that, where they were selling the shit to farmers to produce better weather patterns over their crops and all that. This, again, was not necessarily given to the general public, but it was given to those, because remember, all of these farms and stuff is subsidized by the government anyway. So whatever they tell you to use, they just come to your crib one day and say, okay, put this at the top of your house and 8 o'clock, turn it on. That's all you got to do. Like, you don't know that that's what the device is, especially in a communist country. So a lot of this was going down. So based upon that, the United States, by the 60s, after the Roswell thing, they was like, yo, we man behind on that. So this is when the whole third war started, which is the Cold War, the silent war, between them trying to gather a lot of this stellar technology back. Because Tesla, he had already got to a certain age, and, they didn't want him to produce really nothing else. So once they was able to get the actual death ray plans from the nigga, that's when they did their thing. Allegedly, Otto Skorzeny was the one who killed him. Otto Skorzeny was the bodyguard of Hitler that got Hitler over here and was up here, in which then they got him out. The story is they shot the double in the face. This is from a book called The Bush Connection by a guy named Eric Orion Borman. There's another book called Executive Decision, right? There's another book on it too, company. But long story short, shoot the double in the face, get Hitler and his girlfriend out, and in the process, now Von Braun, some other chick, get her out. They go into Rome. From Rome, they get to Argentina, consecrate him as a priest, Catholic priest, which is again the 90th degree, and the thing you got to do after you do the 90th degree in Memphis Mizraim, you either become a priest, Catholic priest, in the Roman Catholic Church, or you go into the Church of Satan. So he allegedly goes into the Catholic Church. They put him into a little parish in Argentina for a couple of years, and then after shit died down a little bit, the story is they bring him up and stash him in Camp David. So Otto Skorzeny, who was his bodyguard, was the one who allegedly traveled with him in all these different places, and Leslie was the one who did Tesla in, or whatever, and got the death ray stuff, and then was able to then do their thing. So the story is after the Russians was basically about to use the shit somehow, and somehow or another messed up, or somebody stopped them. I'm not really qualified to go into that aspect of it, but from the stuff that I've read, it was basically like they got into it and it got too hectic, and that's what caused, or the result of that was the Chernobyl thing, and that shut a lot of the scale of stuff that they were trying to do down, but that just activated them and fast-tracked the United States that picked up on it after Glasnost, which was the unification or the so-called crumbling of the old Soviet Republic into now this new FSB thing. Excuse me, this new Russian Federation thing, coincidentally with a red, white, and blue flag. So, all of that being said, with this so-called storm thing, it would kind of show how certain boroughs like Queens and Staten Island, Long Island, like FEMA and all of them, they supposed to have been known, 2 weeks in advance or a week in advance that this thing was going down. So there was thought that it should have been evacuation and all of that in a perfect situation. But the fact that there's never anything like that lets you know that there's always the fixing. There's always somebody trying to get paid off the death, off the insurance, off all of that. What this also brings about, not only the carnage and the frustration of the original people when I cut off, I think that they just televised that Queens was under martial law, which again is an island. So we've got to really hold down the brothers and sisters in Queens, and the babies in Queens. Please hold it down. Protect yourself. Unify if you have to within your communities, and make sure that there's no, funny business going on. Being that, again, it is an island. Same thing with Long Island, Staten Island. But see, also this thing hit a lot of these rich Caucasians that live specifically around the areas of what they call Parksville, Copper Hill, things like that, as well as Midtown, Manhattan, all of that. So again, rain don't have no preference. It's going to wet everybody. And neither does a tidal wave, you know what I'm saying? Tidal wave, they're going to say, okay, it's just these black people I'm going to get. But vibrationally, there's a certain aspect that leads two people together. Like there's a story about the cats. There's huge families of cats huddled together, moving together, the same way you see, what do you call it? The same way you see starlings, a formation of starlings, the same way they move together like that. It was just like that. All these cats moving together in one area, protecting each other, helping each other. Same thing with the dogs. They always know. So another aspect of this that works for the powers that be is that this stops and helps really exposes how apathetic they are towards human beings, period, but it also shows that they don't really respect their own political process, which, again, is to, quote-unquote, vote and make it as easy as possible. Yet the people who are making it difficult to vote specifically are not people of color. They are specifically people in legislature of the Caucasian persuasion. So does that mean that Caucasian people within the political strata of the United States political animal do not want certain black people to vote? If we say yes, then based on the basic layman perception of racism, that means you're a racist. Because you can't say that it's Caucasian people or white people in positions of power that are working within the legislature to disenfranchise 14th Amendment citizens from their vote. Because in the end, brothers and sisters, that's their system. But the way that it's supposed to work for you and I is not the way it is working. It's working in reverse. How can they explain that after civil rights there was an explosion of black males in the prison system? But remember, they would segregate. They were so xenophobic, they would separate the prisoners. But they would make the black prisoners, they would put them in what they call chain gangs, or long lines is what they call them. And they would separate them from the white boys. The white boys did the hard time in the cells, in the institution. Black people separated from that. It wasn't until after civil rights that it became a thing, because they didn't have the right to put black people in the United States prison specifically up until that point, because black people were still under certain international protections that they had become ignorant of, that were never relinquished, even though certain instances on countries worked together to specifically remove the global birthright of us as Moorish people, of a Moorish nation in general. We're the only nation to have that happen to us. As much as these quote-unquote Indians want to talk, and these quote-unquote Native Americans want to talk shit about how, you know, their ancestors was broken, all of that, then if that's the case, then how come you can still practice your culture today? That's fucked up, that's messed up as your situation is. How is it you still get to speak your own language? My people are so apathetic, they don't even want to hear that. But see, they lying to they people too, because they're not basically coming out with the real and letting the world know, as well as their youth know, that they were originally white people, or Caucasian people themselves, who interbred with us to get free. They the linchpin in the story, but they don't want to cop to the story because the white man bribed them with casinos, so that's how they get their money. So then the white man go further, say, well, what you got to do now is disenfranchise all of these so-called black Seminoles and black Cherokees and black so-called Indians that's in your shit, because we're going to basically unify them and put them on the reservations and let you go free now. And these niggas believe it. Don't believe me? Get the movie Casino Jack. Read the book, in fact. Don't get the movie. Read the book. The book is even more in depth. So we're talking about a living history that's being perpetually put against you and me without us knowing, and we're supposed to just eat it and not care. We're supposed to just be American, and that's that. But these niggas can be everything they want. They could be Indian or whatever. My man told me they got people could wear turbans and all of that on the base. Like they got like Hindus and people like that wearing turbans and all of that on the base. Because they always train in international forces, because they want to make these international people, they want to train them to believe that we animals. So this ain't to say that every brother and sister in the army is a traitor and things like that, but it is to say that brothers and sisters that are in that army have to understand that you are not in your government's army. You're in your government's subordinate government's army. Therefore, you don't have the same status that you would in a so-called republic. Remember, they done been beaten in your head since JFK that this is a democracy, right? But to reinstate the government, you got to have money. So what Kennedy was basically doing was putting the money, the $2 bill, backing that with silver. But that silver represents 999, right? Remember, Judas sold Jesus out for 3 pieces of silver. So because that silver is .999, you see what I'm saying? That, again, is a conceptual number, because that also corresponds to the reverse, which is 666, which again is the beast, which is also on the negative, on the literal, it's 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, right? In the movie Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, which was really about the rise of silver surfing in the market, you would see that the silver would come in certain countries and create black holes that everything will fall into. So much so that waves, that there was a tidal wave or a storm or whatever that was going to wash away New York, just like in Deep Impact, just like in all the other movies that they've been setting you up to do this for. But in that, like I said, the Silver Surfer comes in the form of the twins. There's 2 twins in that movie. There's twin storms in that movie, Susan and Johnny, right? Johnny, the J, which is like James. When you get the, if you watch the movie James and the Giant Peach, right? Or James being the Jesus, being the brother of Jesus, if you go by the biblical literary, in that movie, you'll see them with a little, there's a scene, and I forget what minute, but if you watch the movie, there's a scene where they're looking at a file about a whole flood or like superstorm or something that comes in New York. When you watch the movie Wizard of Oz, there's a superstorm that comes in, you know what I'm saying, and alters the reality. We know that whole Wizard of Oz thing was about the establishment of the Federal Reserve. When you look at it in the abstract, but to look at it like that, you got to look at it from the pullback angle, where you're looking at it from the farthest distance, but you're seeing the magnitude of what it really is in front of you. This is an aspect of unihemispheric thinking that they've been trying to shut down in the human populace since they've been practicing the Human Genome Project. What you call the Human Genome Project, we call the Yakub experiment. It's the same thing, people. But because white people don't want to admit to you that they understand and know that the Yakub exists, and the story of Yakub is how they got here, they're playing a trick on you. They're getting you to denounce your own birth right now. So that ain't their fault. That's our fault. Well, it ain't our fault, but it's the people that's doing that that's from our community that look like us fault. See how specific and literal you got to be with niggas nowadays for them to really understand and hear what you're saying? But you see that the more specific and literal you get with Ironside points of what the issue is, niggas don't want to talk about it. They want to create other instances of dialogue to distract you from what's really going on in your own community, in your own life. What if I told you that there's documents out there that says that after 1930 there was supposed to be no meetings in Moorish science temples anymore, based on certain instances and certain things that was going on in terms of the Nazi and Japanese infiltration of the temple. The temple members ain't never heard about that. The sheiks ain't going to talk to you about that. And this don't mean the temples are bad, but it does mean that there's specific protocols that were put in line that certain people, after a certain time, ignored so that way they could be in positions that they enter today. Generationally, we're talking about a generational thing. Because all of these people are bound by the same oaths. And the Creator said that you're not supposed to take no oath. When you go into the large blindfold, they telling other men that they're giving you light. You telling the Creator that you don't have the light that He already put in you. And I told you what the soul was. You telling it that it don't exist in you. That's why they done. That's why you see all these people making the same music. Because once you sell your soul, you can't be creative. You can't create nothing new. You got to just regurgitate what's already out there. You got to keep doing the same thing with the same people at the same time, at the same venues, at the same reality. You got to keep doing that. Repetitiveness does not necessarily create innovation. Repetitiveness can, in a negative, is redundancy. And redundancy is an aspect of insanity because the clinical definition of insanity is one who continues to do the same thing without seeing a different, expecting to see a different result, but never sees one. So based on all the TTA, this Tesla tech array technology, the infrasound stuff, the square receptors that they already had stationed in Venezuela all the way up into the main coast in Montauk Point, they've been setting this thing up. They created a nice little buffer, a nice little crescent thing going so that way this thing could go exactly where it went to. This don't mean they necessarily created the storm, but at a point where it could have dissipated, it seemed to pick up steam for some reason. Storms don't do that, man. Sometimes rain just stops all at once. Because you're dealing with an intelligence. You're dealing with an organic intelligence, man. And what they're trying to do is turn this place into a petri dish where they done turn you against your own self. Therefore, you don't even know what it is you're doing. You don't even think in the right way. They got everybody focused on the HPA stuff, which is the harp stuff, right? And that stuff, like I said, is cool, but people are already hip to that. You got to get to the root of where all the money for all of this is coming from. Where's the money coming from? A lot of the money from this is coming from something called the Jimmy Fund. Google that. It's also connected to the Aurora Fund. That's also connected to the Hurricane Sandy Fund. You know what I'm saying? While all of that's going on, there's a total eclipse going on that's going to pop off from November 13th to the 14th. Solar eclipse now. So this is something that you're going to see in the day. Solar eclipses are about the coming to light of things. Lunar eclipses is about the concealment or the passing of things. So expect something to come to light after the eclipse passes during so, because that will be, again, remnants of what is to happen. Because what they are calling, or what is called the last day of history, is the December 21st thing. You know what I mean? And that December 21st, 2012 thing is just really just a great awakening aspect of one's real self and how that real self corresponds to the eternal self. So it's going to be more, or what I perceive it to be, is more like a realization of almost a knowing in which certain things that if you agree to from that point on, you will be basically bound to for the rest. Like, you know how they say, like, your sins up until 18 is all on your parents? Well, it's like this on an intergalactic scale now. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people are not ready for that responsibility. So a lot of these niggas are going to try to get into the Obama-Romney thing. You know what I mean? But when you take Obama, or what I call Obama, if you take Obama, right, and then you switch it up in an anagram, it's really man obey. You know what I'm saying? And essentially, that's what they are striving to do with these two extremes of the Mormon and the African American, trying to control the original man or man. You know what I'm saying? Specifically. And so, while all that's going on, they unearthed this princess's tomb from the 5th dynasty named Shert Nepti, right? 25th dynasty. She had these great limestone pillars on it. You know what I mean? She was really dope. Now, the thing about it is you have to understand the people who are Egyptian today are not the descendants from the people who actually existed and lived in the pyramids at the time that they were built and all of that. Those people look like me and you, or people from the quote-unquote traditional continent, what they call Africa. So, based upon it being a sister kingdom to some of the kingdoms over here, you have to understand that there is a cross patternization of different tribes coming in from different aspects of the family going over there and doing their thing, as well as the parts of the family from over there coming over here and doing their thing. So as opposed to looking at it like you don't like Africa because you're trying to understand your African, your ancient ancestors that's American, is ludicrous. Like what somebody is doing when they do that to you is trying to put you in a context and put you into a spiritual war between ideological, mythic ancestors that neither one of us, that both of us are still trying to fully understand in a totality. Therefore, you're talking to a disinformation agent. He don't got to work for the government. He ain't got to do that. He ain't got to do that. But based upon his actions, he is somebody that is spiritually against you. And all spies and agents on an intelligence level are trained to deal with you psychologically first. Why? Because the psyche is the access to the soul. And if the soul agrees, the psyche agrees, therefore the body agrees. These people talk a lot of this shit about moral science and stuff like that, but if you ask them where their rising is, where their moon is and stuff, they don't know. But like I said, what if I told you that there was documentation that says that? And if that's the case, then what does that say for the temples that existed after 1930 and up to this day? Now, again, I'm not trying to diss Moors or Moors that are in the Moorish Science Temple. What I'm saying is there is a great hoax being played on members of those temples, on members of different movements or whatever, by the elders, specific elders within those communities that are not sharing the true history of how and situations that this thing came into being. Like I said, you got Farrakhan sending his own black people to get audited, meaning to get brainwashed by black people, by white people in the Scientology movement, which again is a straight Luciferian movement. It's straight Luciferian. Mormonism is straight Luciferian. Go to Utah. I've been to Utah. Me and the Queen been to Utah. I done seen the Egyptian, the Egyptian theater. I done seen the Scottish Rite Temple there. That shit is like the Vatican. Why would somebody go to that great of lengths to doing something to put that much money into something that's just some little fraternal organization? I done seen the Mormon church. That shit is huge. But guess what? Mormons don't even get to go in there. It's so satanic. They don't even let everything in it is all white. Because they say possession of Lucifer is total immersement of light. But I mean such a searing white light that there's no respite from it. Who wants to live in a world in a demon, in the belly of a demon like that? All these niggas. You hear me? All of them want to do it. They big them up every day, every chance they get. Regardless to what faith they are. You could be Muslim, you doing the same thing. You know how many Muslims are Satanists? You know how many Jews are Satanists? You know how many Buddhists are Satanists? That's the point. The point is you could do all that shit and still be a Satanist. That's how they get over. So with this, where did this rampant appetite for destruction come from? Where does the satanic idea come from? Well, in their technology, in their so-called hierarchy, there's Lucifer, there's the 7, then there's the 9, then there's everybody else. 7, 9, Vatican, I guess what, Pope, Black Pope, then everybody else. Rothschilds, and then everybody else. You already know about it. Each one of these 7 exists in a different place in the world, if you believe that exists. But why wouldn't you? They've created so many movies that already show you that this happened. You've read so many books over the years. They've been preparing you to live in this mythology, is what I'm basically trying to say. This thing has already been in play. They've already created enough mythology around this whole thing to make it work. They got a card game. They got movies about it, right? They got niggas flashing it up. They got niggas talking about, I got my Illuminati card on TV. Like, this is what niggas is doing. They didn't desensitize you to your own slavery enough that when you think of pyramids, you think of them. This is how deep this shit is. And that's cool. You got conscious niggas doing straight Satanism. But then if I say that it's Satanism, what? I don't know that it comes from Set, and that Set was the representation of the negative aspect of a star, who was really the future version of Heru and all this other shit. But I don't know that it came from a pre-dynastic aspect of Typhon. Yes, I do know all that, but it's still satanic, niggas. It don't matter. It don't matter. You still worshiping Lucifer. I know Lucifer represents the pineal gland, but it don't represent my pineal gland. You understand what I'm saying? Because I understand what the word means. So I know that if I'm going to incant that to myself, no matter how deep I know that it is, the devil is a liar. You're getting it twisted. Don't read so much occult shit and so much knowledge that you stupefy yourself and allow yourself to get possessed by these niggas. These niggas is doing straight up lectures and rap and doing seances on you. You don't even know. They got you believing shit that it's not even real. And I'm not just talking about niggas in the conscious community. We've been telling niggas is just getting up on that. People just getting up on the fact that these people, we've been saying people don't know the difference between sovereignty, nationality, fiscal response. We was offering classes on that 2 years ago. When these niggas was selling packages for thousands of dollars. So don't get mad at me that I'm talking about it. And I'm not salty that niggas gave them money, because a fool will always gather the purse of a foolish wise man. But once you understand that, it's your duty to respect and give praise to the fact that you understand now, and stop. You think what I'm saying? They're creating storms. They're creating physical storms around. They're using God's divine energy and creating spiritual storms around that, and then using scalar technology to box it into a certain area to turn Queens 2012 into Katrina 2005 or 2004 or whatever. You can't expect them people to do that. This is why you need your own government, people. This is why you need your own representation in government, if that's the case. And I'm not talking about voting. Moors don't vote. I'm sorry. There's nowhere that I read in any Moorish circles of the Quran, anything in the quotations of the Prophet, anything that says you ought to go to the United States government and cast your ballot as a citizen of the United States. All of the documentation that I've seen, and I'm going through it. I'm going through the FBI reports. I'm going through what the white man say was going on through the thing. I'm trying to, people blessing me with real access to shit that is real. Because these niggas today is just talking. They talking. And people gobbling it up. And all they're doing is putting you in a patriot position. They arguing a disembodied fact. They're debating a foregone conclusion. Because it's not based on nothing but ego. What's the difference? If you got what's this thing name? Obama, this nigga Romney, and they debating, what's the difference when it happens with us? How are we doing anything that's isolatedly different? How are we elevating the situation? When has any debate that we've ever done elevated our community to the point that we have felt more unified since they've been happening? You tell me, how many people within this community have come and gone with different ideologies and different understandings and dropped it on you? Oh, he's dope. Oh, he's this, he's that. Yo, he's the new truth. He got this, he got that. And where are they now? So we have to understand, we got to create, they're trying to create a new spherical system around Santo Domingo and Venezuela to move this thing further up so that way it creates almost a perpetual storm pattern. But wait, remember, we're also dealing with law now. We're dealing with admiralty jurisdiction. Why? Because the waters of the ocean have come on land, which then are bringing the lands, which are then bringing the waters of the ocean on land, which are then extending or bringing the shoreline further inland. This then means that the sea barrier, or the line in which the sea and the land are now pulled back, made more inland, which then accesses the point of admiralty jurisdiction. Because now the land of the sea, the laws of the sea is on land. You got sharks swimming in Queens, swimming in the street. You got ocean fish in people's basements. So based on that, the law of the land has to be procured under FEMA, because they're the ones that deal with admiralty law and jurisdiction directly, which is why they ain't doing nothing. So prior to all this, though, like I said, there's this big tomb that gets unearthed, right, from the 5th dynasty, right, 500 BC, Shurt-Nepti, who was a princess. Now, the last time they unearthed a goddess, a princess, a pop star from ancient Kemet or whatever, Whitney Houston was killed, right? So the first thing comes to my mind, okay, well, who they killed now that they done found this tomb with this princess? Oh, Shorty from Black. She just got took out on some hit-and-run driver who called in to the precinct and said, oh, I know I hit somebody. And nobody went and investigated this person. So, again, they still doing it, y'all. They still doing it. What Randy Quaid called the star whackers, they still whacking niggas, yo. They still unearthing pyramids. So now, whenever they unearth a pyramid now, this is another ritual I'm telling you about. Remember, you heard it first. I'm telling you about rituals. Whenever they unearth something now, that's somebody that's got to go in the mainstream, specifically when it's black. That's how you know the Egyptian people that they unearthing is us, or reminiscent of us. Because when one comes to light, one has to go down. This nigga Ray J, this nigga was campaigning for the president. What part of the game is that? So based on this now, ocean water being on land, admiralty jurisdiction being extended, the shoreline being brought now further inland, this now has created a situation that allows for the law of the sea, admiralty, to be enforced on persons who are now being seen as floating vessels set adrift that must be moored, meaning secured, and brought into port, meaning arrested. Do you know that they was arresting people during the goddamn storm? How you do that? But who was they arresting? The homeless people. They're always scared of homeless people. You know why? Because they don't have no address. You don't know who they are. This person could be Christ. That's why they be so pet when they come to deal with one person. Because they're so wicked and so crooked. That is what they're doing. So, okay, now what? So, okay, the white man's not the devil. It's okay for niggas to what? Become part of organizations that kill people. Police, army, whatever. It's okay now. What's the other shit? You don't have to be in open. Not only can you be in an open relationship, you could be in a poly-open relationship in which you just live with the person, have sex, but then you just share them with everybody and anybody. This is the demoralization. That is denationalization. Homosexuality is an aspect of denationalization. Why? Because you're disassociating yourself from one aspect of your natural culture. Or maybe it's not denationalization, maybe it's expatriation from the role of male. So once you step out of your original role, you are whatever is out there. You understand? You have no flag. That's the thing. We are stateless people. We have no real flag that's representing us that is in full play for us right now. But like I said, do you know while this Frankenstein was going on that these people, they didn't call for the UN to be senators on the floor, got up and called for the UN to be kicked out of all facilities in the United States for fear of subjugation? They also, on the same day, found out in Texas that they don't have the right to arrest any UN. So just like they found out in Texas on the same day that the UN are the ones overseeing all of the voting in the country. Did you know that? All of this was announced on the same day, internationally. So, of course, you didn't think about that when you got waters, you know what I'm saying, tidal waves coming in and trying to wash you away. You ain't thinking about voting. You ain't thinking about none of that. And why they do it in the East Coast, where most of the black people at. Of course, they going to vote for the nigga. Because that's what they supposed to do, because he black. Just like white people supposed to vote for white people, because he white. If they would just admit that that's what they want him in there for, he might could get in. And niggas might be okay with that shit. If white folk, if they was just to come out, I'm talking about black people that act white, white folk that's white, black folk and white folk and Asian folk and everybody's trying to be white in terms of Western civilization. If y'all would just admit the fact that you want to be anything other than yourself, or specifically phenotypic Caucasian, if you could admit that to yourself, then maybe your life would be happier, and then maybe you would understand and allow niggas to do their thing, because you're being honest with yourself. The problem with quote-unquote Democrats is that they're not real. They're not real with the fact that most of the people in the KKK, and specifically militia people ancestrally, have been down with the Democratic Party, and that both parties usurped the original party, which was us, the original black Republicans, which was us. But because they made deals to become Freemasons, Masons, they stepped out of the realm of their original character, of their original nationality, of their original status, of their original jurisdiction. So respect to the queen who was unearthed and the queen who was put in earth in terms of the Sister Black and this whole Egypt ritual thing they did in terms of the founding of that. Also understand why it's hard for some people to get processed and all of that, because they process people under direct martial law admiralty directly in places that they arrested people and all of that right now, because they're not telling you that it's really on some admiralty law or whatever until things get situated how they want. This nigga, Bloomberg, was going to have people, wasn't even going to cut off the marathon. He was going to have white, from all over the world, black people, Asian people, Indian people. He was going to have all of them run through the bodies and everything. That's how savage these people are. That's how much of a savage these quote-unquote people are. And their families. Because you allow it. You perpetuate it. You live off it. Sorry, that's what's going on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry people don't like it. I'm sorry it makes people feel uncomfortable. I really am. I really am. I'm laughing, but I really am, because I know it's hard for certain Caucasian people, black people especially. It might be more hard for black people to hear the Caucasian people, because Caucasian people already know. Y'all already know. You already really know what's going on. A lot of these black people are scared to talk directly to white folk about what it is in a way that's dispassionate, in a way that's not dealing with no hate or no animosity or no inferiority complex. I don't fear no man, nobody. Because I feel like I'm living right. I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. So I don't give a damn what this nigga say, what these niggas is debating about. It don't matter, because in the end, they all going to be revealed for what they are. They already have. Anybody still, the best thing people could do is not go. Is not vote, not participate, not go to debate, not do nothing, not participate, nothing, until you see a change in what it is you want to see. If everybody in America right now, I say it every day, if everybody in America right now was to say, you know what, I ain't going to work until this whole country is revamped within the span of 2 years, these niggas would get to work the next day. Or they would be coming to your crib with guns trying to force you to go to work, let you know what the country is really like. They're about to come out with Red Dawn to hype you up against the Chinese, because they're trying to put the Chinese out of Africa. Because the Chinese are making too much money. But then you got Africans trying to put the Chinese out now, too. But I say this, at least the Chinese is over there teaching niggas Shaolin Kung Fu, teaching orphans Shaolin Kung Fu. Now, they may use these orphans to fight against their own people when they grow up. You know what I'm saying? Which is the customary way of the Moors. But, hey, at least they learning. At least they ain't raping them. At least they ain't cutting their hands off and their feet off, because that's what Africans is doing to each other in certain places at the behest of certain Mossad agencies. You got niggas calling themselves that. Like, I'm bugging. Like, I'm saying, like, it's all good. Like, if it's really all good, then really let me know. If it's really all good, if it's really, you could just do whatever. You could just say whatever and be spiritually conscious and all that. And it's all good, then cool, man. Let me know. But put it in a context that I can understand it. Because I got children that I got to answer to. And these niggas going to want to know.
You're not going to be able to put it in a context you understand. Because some things happen that are not supposed to be understood.
You're right.
Some things just aren't logical.
You're right.
Some niggas just like shit to be backwards.
You're right.
And some people came here to challenge the notion to see if it could if it could work.
A square receptor.
Right. And when they attack what they want based on that intent of really not even having a plan other than to cause confusion at the end of the day and be in the center of it, you're very black and white. You know, even sometimes when we argue, there is no room for the argument because what you're saying is what you say. And it usually can be qualified and backed up. And if one is in an emotional state of being in peace, then it infuriates whomever wants a response from you because as a woman, in the time of, like, arguing with you, which we do, like, once every 3 months, I call it our seasonal arguments, but basically it can't really go anywhere because once you're in a space of making a decision to not allow something affect you and you really are working on that, the thing that notices you're doing that, it's going to do everything to get an effect out of you. So what you have to do is really walk away. Like, really walk away and pray that you can send that person and that entity and that energy away in love. And whoever gets caught up, gets caught up. It's like sometimes people need to be in the whirlwind to be like, oh, shit, I'm caught up, nigga. Hey, if that's how you learn this like that, great. I'm even peeping game from raising my child. Like, he came here with his own agenda. Yeah, I'm going to curtail it. Yes, I'm going to allow him to know, look, you know, you don't like being in pain. So you really shouldn't do things that cause a greater chance of you being really, really hurt. Like some wild out shit. And he really sits and does the knowledge to it. But when he gets older, that moment in time, that's going to be on him to make that decision. And if he chooses to go down that pathway to hit his head and give himself a problem that doesn't exist, well, then that's what he's going to choose to do. And I can say I did as best I can do and say don't cause problems that don't exist. And this could be as simple as biting your nails. Just biting your nails, watching somebody on the bus that bites his nails, and then 20 minutes later I'm noticing him worse biting his nails. And I'm like, why? I know that you watched her, and now you're emulating that, but that's a bad habit. You don't need to pick up bad habits that don't belong to you. But imagine as an adult just being around certain people, energy is enigmatic. So if you're around or are in a space where you know bullshit is existing and you stay there, don't leave and expect to smell good because you already are aware that you're going there for a show with some drama. And, you know, I could tell you New York is filled with drama. From where I come from, I definitely feel it now that, like, even the situations and the people that I attract, I sometimes go, why is this? Why? Well, you're figuring out how to let go of attracting people that are psychologically trying to figure out how to be sane. And I know I attract some crazy motherfuckers because there's a part of me that is fascinated by, like, how ill a person can lie to themselves. And I will watch it, like, watch when they click it and flip it and rub it down and try to get you to co-sign. And, you know, even, like, with girls are like the new men. And I say this to Esther all the time, you know, because most men are raised by, you know, single women and mothers, even myself. I realized the other day that I probably really was not raised to stay in a relationship with a man. I was raised by a very independent single mother, quote unquote, and because I wasn't raised in the same household with my father, she taught me everything to take care of myself, not to need anybody, not to rely on anyone, and those are all strengths, but a relationship is based on listening It's based on submission sometimes. It's based on letting go of your point to hear the greater point. And that's a process that in being married for 13 years, I'm learning how to do it. I'm not the best yet, but I'm learning how to do it. And I share that to say, niggas just want to look so flossy, son. Niggas just want to look so glossy. Like, it's not even, how I'll watch, like, certain music videos, like, even, like, what's this guy that I think is so corny? Kendrick Lamar. I think he's a cornball. I don't think he's got swag. But I think he's so talented. I think he's an amazing musician, and I think he has the ability to really perform really well because he's really leaving he's enjoying himself, and it's great to watch. As corny as he may be off stage, he still has a spark that makes him unique and fly. So it's like, he knows what he's good at, and I say that to say, damn, that nigga's got, like, zero swag to me. He's, like, just really, like, cheesiest. But in watching him and listening to his music, he makes great records. And I have to be like, that dude is the shit, and I got to listen and humble.
But what I see in this era, and this one thing is, the more they started to wean people off of real food, the more, like, you stop going home. Like, remember when you was getting older, it got to the point where, like, you stop, like, being home for dinner, you know what I'm saying? You would just be out and doing your thing. It gets to a point sometimes where, like, one disassociate themselves from their family. And when you get to a point where you actually on your own and you start seeing how things really are, you then get a deeper appreciation from that. But sometimes the bonds in that are already stretched so thin that they can't be repaired. And it has to be somebody that's willing to say, okay, that's a wrap. Like, I think part of the problem, too, is we be trying to breathe life into shit that is already dead. Think about it. Most of the stuff that you're building on is based on people that ain't even alive no more. Right? That's been dead for thousands of years, hundreds of years. So what a white man asks you is, well, what does it matter that King Tut was black, or that you see him as a black person or an ancestor? What does it matter now? Like, what is that help? How is that helping you now? You see what I'm saying? But if you was to ask that same white man, well, what does it matter that my ancestor Yakub grafted you from Negro Araba Javara super chimpanzee? And what does that mean now that you got money? You know what I'm saying? It don't matter, because when things really started, or when you started on this planet, you was little more than an animal. So you see how you could use stereotype, or you could use somebody's truth as a means to enslave them based upon what it is you perceive to be that truth to be. And this is the basis that they have created, this pseudo-exoteric society that believes in this thing that they are calling the Great Culling. The term Collins, as in the Collins family, the original name of the family was the Cullen, with a K. And the Cullen family was one of those families that after they had bleached out everybody else, they had practiced satanic magic ancestrally, or what would be satanic magic ancestrally, and passed that down in terms of the breeding practices of their family through what's called peerage. And so the Collins family, just like the Percy family, was involved with what happened on the 5th of November. Funny, right? Today is the 5th, right? Remember, the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I never remember a time to December when the plot would be forgot. Interesting, right? I didn't even realize that. So they basically, Percy, when they found out that they was trying to kill the last of the Moorish nobility there, we put a hit out on them to kill them. So they jumped on ships that was coming over here to Jamestown and came over and, did their thing as merchants on behest of the hosting family that initially set them up. And so the Cullen, to switch it, the Pierce family, the Percy changed their name to the Pierce, and the Cullen changed their name to Collin. Like you have Collins Avenue out here and all of that. That's these people. So they are one of the families that you don't really hear about, but that is really really steeped in that whole satanic, you know what I'm saying, blood magic shit, lycanthropy, vampirism, that type of shit. Anyway, the name Kull means to kill or to kill off, right? So a culling, right, is when you have like a herd, like a group of hundreds of people, and then you shear it down because it's too many for you to process or sell or whatever. So it's a shearing of the sheep. It's a killing of the cattle or slaughter of the goyim. And so the grand culling or the great culling is what they've been trying to brew or been trying to create since the beginning of this so-called plan. So what we talk about as wars being aspects or functionaries of that, we are talking about people who are, like, you could be homicidal. These people are genocidal. They're genocidal nihilists who have so deep psychological issues in which they know. Because the thing is, they know that they're like the worst thing in the world. You have to understand. But because they dress in the finest linens, you understand, and can make you believe shit because they can just break you up a couple of dollars, you think it's all good. And it is. Like I said, you got niggas that's in this game now that's trying to tell you, wearing feathers and telling you to vote. What's between that and Puffy doing that to people who's in the hip-hop? They ain't no different. Niggas is crazy. But now I see why documents that I'm reading is saying why they was shutting certain things down in certain meetings, and where meetings in general was basically not the spirit that the prophet was going to, and that the prophet was basically deemed, when he received the mandate for the North Central South America at the Great Convention at Cuba, Havana, Cuba, where he gave the United States an ultimatum, and he do that. What that basically was them acknowledging him as a descendant of the new empire, as the new so-called emperor of this side of the world, as being recognized as Nobuju Ali, the prophet. This don't mean he was telling people to worship him as God, but it don't mean that people didn't do that. But he never said that. He never said nothing about sovereignty. The only time sovereignty appears in the Moral Circle 7 Quran is when he is in reference to God, but not God, government ordinance defense, God being the supreme being God. But again, like I said, most of the niggas that spitting this nonsense to you now is Freemasons, which means they done made an oath, a pact with Satan. That's the pact, guys. I'm sorry, you got to do the knowledge to that. Those niggas that have done it and it's not really active, that's not trying to get out. There's things you could do to rescind that, but you gotta openly declare that, not only to yourself and your family, but you gotta write a letter to these niggas and let them know. Get out of it, because that's not your original society. They based that whole society on what your ancestors was already doing. When the white man offered Ashraquazi that money to bust down where in the text Horus and Jesus was referred to, or Horus was referred to as a virgin birth. All of that, to me, was aggravation or things that was put out there to draw the teacher out. Now, had it been Khalid Muhammad, he'd have smashed him. You understand? He'd have went right to the white boy house with the camera and been like, look, devil, this is why it's like this. You understand what I'm saying? But that's why they had to get rid of Khalid, man. But again, based on his shortcomings and the things that he was involved in, he had just a little bit of dirt on him that they could try to get in and then hook it up. And then once he did the knowledge to aspects of the spirituality that he wasn't really dealing with, it became a wrap. But they would not be able to be in Harlem if it was there, if he was still around. You understand? Niggas would not be talking all the shit this white man shit ain't. What? Could you imagine? And I'm not saying that is like the main component of you being black, like you being black predicated upon you believing the white man ain't the devil. I ain't saying that. What I'm saying is you got to understand who and what your enemy is. And based upon the erroneous energy of the so-called powers that be, not even so-called the U.S. government, because everybody in this government ain't on it like that. There are people that's loyal still to this day to the Republic. This cracker
KKK niggas that's ready to give you a burner quicker than one of these jet black, pro-black niggas. How about that? And vice versa. But like Superfly in the movie said, he said, until you niggas is ready to go get guns and go into the white man do our shit right now, you really get to get the F out of my face and let me do what I do and get this money. Within 20 years, you went from all hail the queen to bringing down the house. You understand what I'm saying? So all I'm saying is that we got to really look into the things that we are saying that we are part of and function and roll with those and support those that's really doing the work, that's not just talking and shit, man, because a lot of these niggas is talking and they using up minutes of your life to pay attention to trivial dogma that they already know that them agreed upon that it's like this. This is the game that's coming from the top down. This is how the game been played. This ain't no affront to nobody. This is real talk, man. Niggas look at me, look at us, and they think we young. I'm not. I've been on the planet for a minute, man. You know what I'm saying? And as a man, yeah, I'm young in spirit, in life, because God, the knowledge, family, good sex, that shit keep you young. When you focus your energy, it's hard for niggas to just focus their energy with one female or with two females that's with that. It's hard because a lot of people like to do shit the hard way. That ain't got nothing to do with consciousness. That got to do with your nature. That's got to do with what you brought here when you got here and what you forgot to believe when you came here. And so that ain't my fault. It ain't my fault that I don't believe that I'm an African American. It ain't my fault that I don't believe in any of the lies that was taught to me by members of my own family. That ain't my fault. I ain't make them lie to me. They felt they needed to do that for certain reasons. And some of them didn't know. Some of them thought they was telling me the truth. As best as they know. But guess what? They had already sold their soul. They had already made their pack because every Thursday night or Friday night, they had to enlarge. Or worse. But guess what? Boys and girls, it ain't just me. It damn sure ain't just me. We talking about a whole generation. If I'd have known the things I know about MK Ultra and shit like that, as soon as I'd have seen, as soon as I had my first talk with my first baby mother, I'd have known right then. What's the relationship like with your mom? Okay. How many times was your mother married? Oh, okay. Okay. And she left you? She left you in this place for all these years and wasn't going to come? Oh, okay. Okay. Instead of, oh, well, she's really going through it. I'm going to be here and support her. Or that's her mother. That's not how just because her mother like that don't mean she like that, right? How many times you said that, bro? How many times you said that to yourself? You seen it for your face. You seen the mother. You there only. How many times you been in the living room for certain brothers that doesn't happen to? How many times you chilling with your shorty? Y'all watching TV in your girl's house or your girl's mom's house or whatever, and then the mother come out in negligee and go to the bathroom. How many times that happened? I ain't make her do that. You dig what I'm saying? She a grown-ass woman. This woman could be my mother. But she's still a woman. She still want to look sexy. You dig what I'm saying? I'm talking about human nature, man. I'm talking about human nature. There comes a day as a man where you look at your he basically do the other time video. Another type. There comes a time where as a man you wind up realizing that you finishing your father's arguments with your moms. And at that point, you realize you're not your father, but what you also realize is that your mother is a woman. And at that realization, not just your mother, but she is a woman, meaning that she can be scornful, she can be vindictive, she can hide things from you. She cannot tell you the truth. She could make you believe that your father is one person when it's really somebody else. You understand? Because the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world. But, like I said, when you make blanket statements like, oh, I don't date black women because they all crazy, or they all angry, like what D.L. Hughley said, you talking about yourself. Not that you're a black woman as a black man, but we, the epidermis of our skin, if you was to put it under a subatomic microscope, you would see it bears the same genetic material as the vagina that you came out of, unless you're not born human, unless you're a clone or something like that, which there are a lot of you out there and don't even know. And I'm sorry, but I'm talking to humans right now. And if you're a human, you know that there's something in you that gets to a point where you want to know why things were a certain way. And there's very few women, my mother included, that if you were a product of what's called a cuckold situation, is ever really going to tell you the truth about how that ritual or how that situation went down. For those people that don't know, cuckold is a legal term in which a woman takes a man's seed and makes him believe something else about it and tries to, use that against him. We're in the emotional guilt given, because remember, we're created by women who were emotionally in a transitional state because their mothers didn't really teach them how to be wise, because they didn't seem to be happy in their relationship. So as soon as they got into a relationship that didn't work, she said, I'm not going to be my mother, so I'm not going to stay into this thing, meaning I'm not going to work this out with this thing. Or I'm receiving certain things, so I don't feel that I need a man to do that. But where does that mentality come from? Did that start with you, black woman? No. That came from Gloria Steinem and Mary Paglia and Irma Mankiller and the rest of these psychotic, theosophic, Blavatsky, Annie Besant, Alice Bailey-induced theosophists who were trying to disenfranchise you from your natural way of healing. So because witch sounded too satanic, they needed to switch it to Wicca. So that way it sound more inviting for you, black woman, to be down. You see? Because you're the linchpin of all of this working or not. If you don't co-sign it, really, it's only going to go but so far. So the little black boy, a little black baby is beautiful up until he gets to be 12, 13. Then the same cop, just like them boys in the hood that was patting him on his head, saying, hey, Chef, how you doing? Is the one ramming a gun in his head, or worse, sticking a plunger up his behind, like Abner Louima. People remember that? Did you know that the cop who did that is selling his art right now for thousands of dollars while he's in jail? I thought you couldn't make money when you was in jail. Guess you can. You see what I'm saying? Guess it's okay. As much as niggas are throwing you guns and all of that, these dudes ain't running up with no police stamp, no cop. Doing that, they'd be a fool to do that. You'd be a fool to do that, man. So the great culling, which is the thinning of the herd, is a great surprise for them. It's something that they're looking forward to. Understand? Something that they've long been trying to, but not everybody in the world is with that. For those people that watch all the Ben Fulford broadcasts and all that, don't support all that crap, huh? Yes, there is a Black Dragon Society that your ancestors founded in ancient China or ancient Ixi back in the days and all of that. And yes, there are remnants of those people with in power and all that to do that. But unless they come in to help you, original man, that ain't working. One of the reasons why they wanted to shut down the meetings, or they shut down the meetings, was because of the fact that Emperor Hirohito and Hitler, through the fake Fard, who was the Turkish version, was basically sending him over here to gain access to members of the Moorish Temple. The Japanese government empire was breaking bread. But because, again, they was in league with the Nazis, because this is why the term Asiatic is in your lexicon, right? Because they brought with them the science of the Asiatic cultures that the Olmecs and all that was dealing with when they was dealing with Moorally and Muhammad and them. But they was too hot because they was dealing with Hitler, who was also practicing more science in the reverse, in the negative. So they had to do something. So the original Fard did his work, then the Russian agents and all of that, the Japanese Fard came in which they were sending ambassadors to the Moorish Science Temple to give dissertations and speeches about what was going on. Like all of this in the precursor to the war, the Japanese attacking Pearl Harbor. So all of this is going down. The Prophet and the rest of them is like, look, man, we got to find another way to do this. Because all of our temples not only being, because this is bringing heat from the FBI. That's why they got fired. That's how the files opened up on them. That's how the term Asiatic came in, term the original Asiatic black man, because they needed to include the Asian, or the Asian side of us, because what the Japanese wanted to do was actually invade America and then have the Moors be the original government to help the Moors reinstate the original government under the Republic side of it, and then subordinate the United States, and then basically rule in tandem like that until they try to screw us out the deal and then make us under them. But as the original Americans, this was the only way that they could add legitimacy to their occupation. You see what I'm saying? So we was like, look, that would be cool and all that, but y'all going to put us in direct contravention with the United States government that's already trying to keep it secret. So in return of this breaking that situation, Woodrow Wilson has to, what? Give back the flag of the original Moors, right? Because this is now the agreement that this shit got to get turned back over at a certain time. And Woodrow Wilson was a staunch racist. He hated black people, but he was also a puppet of the banking interest, which was the third party that was injecting themselves into the whole conversation of the United States. That's the holdup. So he said, look, we can't do it. The interview that I was reading basically said that they couldn't do that. And that they basically was using them as a means, they was using those meetings as a means to isolate who was trying to infiltrate, whether it was the FBI, whether it was the Japanese, whether it was the Germans, whether it was the Turks. Because the idea was also to get us to adopt the Islam that was being put through by the Grand Mufti under the Nazi, who was actually a Khazarian Jew. Also, because it was also being infiltrated by Masons, which is why CMB did the clock. So that way there would be a higher representation or direct representation of Moorish right into the divine aspects of what was going. So all sides of our community would be taken care of. I got it. You could get it. So you understand why there's so much confusion now, today. Because a lot of people have been generationally put in place to keep it going as grand sheiks, as sergeant grand commanders, as imams, as reverends, as pastors, as gurus, right, as swamis. This is why, like I said, they had to eventually split up what was going on, because what Sheikh Deuce and them was doing was so hard that the Arab Muslims eventually need to flip it. So once they found they couldn't deal with us like that, they started to focus more on those of us that was over there, and specifically the Philistine population that we'll call the Arabs. And so through Grand Mufti, the Nazis followed what the Turks did and created their own Muslim Guard who wore feathers in battle to go along with the Zouave Moors that was already being loaned out by the British Empire to those other people due to the Moorish jurisdiction being overlooked. So they basically fell into this erroneous, like I said, jurisdictional quagmire of being outsourced to different nations. And then wherever we was at after July 3rd, we had now fallen under the occupation of that nation because our own nation had ceased to be recognized by the three powers that were all in the back pocket now of these robber barons that was coming up. So there's always a course of what they call a culling that they bring about to get rid of those undesirables so that way they can rule a little longer. So the last day in history, 0 point, December 21st, is not the end of the Mayan calendar, which we said on DVDs like the Cosmic Countdown and shit like that. What it is an awakening to the fact that you can no longer be on the fence. You got to choose something. And the more you deny it, the more it's going to start to smack you up. The situation start to move you further into the opposite end, which then is the quote-unquote New World Order. But if you order your New World beforehand, there's a way out. But again, that's on the side of the true and living God, the one true creator, who is not Lucifer, who is not the beast. It's not cool to associate yourself with demons. It's not cool to do that. Sorry. Not if you're working in the light. It's cool to be of the light and know the dark. That's one thing. Like, I know how to bind a demon. I know how to call one, but I ain't going to do it. Because first of all, it takes too much, and second of all, they'll trick you. Because really what you're dealing with is the unresolved issues that you have with yourself materialized and being used through some fifth-dimensional ether, manipulated against you. So you could be in a seance and you know you got to keep it all, keep the circle contained. But what happened would be you could be doing something and then you see a flash of light and then you focus on the light and then you be gone. Or the door knocks and then and then you just out of it. You think somebody's coming for the seance and you get up and then you just be going or it be in you. Or you get a phone ring. You try to get the phone and there don't be no phone in the house. The phone didn't ring at all. These niggas be playing with blood magic. They be playing. They be making songs and rap songs and shit to entrance you into some sort of demonic possession. But you got to still be open enough. You could listen to that and not have that come to you. You're not weak spiritually. You're stronger than that. But possession and mind control is the same thing. Extraterrestrials and aliens is the same thing. A dimension in the galaxy is the same thing. Once you break down the barriers of things like that, you push past the thing that's blocking you. You know what I'm saying? So this storm is basically the first part of it. They had to get rid of Gaddafi because he could mobilize Africa. You know what I'm saying? So he had to go. Plus, he was empowering Africa. So in retaliation to that, in retribution to that, they kill as many original people in Tunis, Algeria, and all these places as they can. Because the United States is a satanic government, and they have members within those Arabic countries that are satanic as well, but they happen to be Muslim, but they have to be Jewish, like the Saudis have. You know they Hebrews because Prince Saud is in the Moorish Quran. But if I was you today and you get one with his picture in it, I wouldn't necessarily do not. Well, with mine, I took it out. Because technically, anytime you have somebody's image on something, that's basically representing
some sort of allegiance. His picture was in there because he was one of the finances to get brought over here. That's why Prince Bandar, if you look at him, he's straight black. He's like NASA. Or Anwar Sadat. You know what I'm saying? Who resurrected as Sadat X. In my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Because the energy never dies, it just gets transfixed. So there's so much spiritual energy built up by all these ancestors we've been building on for so long that there's no way that we can't really get to the point we're supposed to be. It's just now we have to declare what that is going to be. And that can't be anything that has been checked or used by these civilizations, societies, due to the fact that, based on what I've just told you tonight, and there's even more to it. But this is the step, but to really get into that, you got to come to class. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not just, there's only but so much I can say on the radio like that. It's due to the fact that you got so many niggas that take little bits of stuff that I'm saying and then try to create whole movements and societies and shit on it and then flip it with their little Freemasonic back in it, you know what I'm saying? Which then perverts really the truth I'm trying to tell you. But at the same time, I'm glad that we're in the position we're in terms of the mainstream underground of the consciousness, because that's always where it's been at. They wouldn't be able to flip no hurricane and all that shit like that if Khaled and these niggas was up in Harlem. You know what I'm saying? Yet, again, due to the yoke, the cable toll that's put on people, they don't understand the spiritual obligation that they become a part of, no matter how benign and no matter how flowery the intent. You can't walk through a mud field and not get it on your shoes, man. At least. You can't go out in the rain in an umbrella and not get wet. You know? Unless you're Yehoshua. You know what I'm saying? So, just because a dude takes a picture with his hand on his heart don't necessarily mean that he went through some sort of ritual. Somebody blindfolded him and playing with his booty and stuff like that. That's not true. No matter how many other pictures you put that up with. Maybe they're all emulating him. You know what I'm saying? So when we talk about the Prophet Muhammad, I think about Elijah Muhammad. Then I think about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, son of Ben Abdullah. You know what I mean? Not because I see one more than the other, but one was the doorway to the other. You know what I'm saying? And I'm grateful because I wouldn't want to be a Sunni. I wouldn't want to be a Sunni. There come a time in which we, again, are getting to a point where these things have doubled up. So like I said, the monster, Sandy, who has now manifested as this Frankenstein, who's also green, another green monster like the Hulk, is reminiscent of the energy of envy. And where there's envy, there's jealousy and scorn. So, as we are closing out, brothers and sisters, it's just a relevancy for you to clear and really get to the root. And we're one of the few people that's bringing it in a fashion that you can ascertain what it is. because the agenda is getting us where we need to go. You know what I'm saying? And as many books and as many things that we have in play to show and prove who we are, who we were, we have to somehow implement that into something that is going to represent us in a fashion that we can see. A lot of people are becoming discouraged and stuff from all of this news that's just coming into it, as well as people that's been into it, just due to all of the riffraff and all the crazy shit. You know? However, you don't have to pay attention to that. There's so much stuff out there now, so many divine people and elders that have come, gone, look into the history of consciousness, black consciousness, specifically in the Americas, because that's what ignited everything else. As much as we talk about Africa and all of that, other than Diop, Dr. Ben, Patrice Lumumba, Idi Amin, half and half, definitely General Mau Mau, Sadat, Nasser. That's about it. So we talk about Pan-Africanism, we talk about something that was really kind of proposed out there, but was really brought into existence by people like Malcolm, meaning Moors from over here, who once he came from over there became a Moor in terms of taking on the L. So no matter how you look at it, it's just us. We're the only ones that can establish what the so-called American Republic is. And no matter how many white people go into voting and all that other stuff, and how many black people go into the Republican Party and all of that, you're still going into that to maintain an aspect of white supremacy in the waning days of a collapsing empire or collapsing dynasty. So in that, new dynasties and new nations are born of that. So 2013 really is going to be a huge nexus point for a lot of things that you think are going to jump off in 2012. Yet if 2012, December 21st, is supposed to be the last day, which it is the last day of modern history in terms of our context, the next day then, December 22nd, is going to be actually the first day of new history, which is awesome when you look at it. So these solar eclipse that comes up, look for the great revealing in your own personal life as well as in the outside world, the external world. For those people that want to know more about what we were talking about before, you can holler at us through houseofel@hotmail.com and get in on the classes that we have popping every Wednesday from 9 to 11. Very informative. It's $100 for the month, $25 a week. So it's very affordable. And for those people who really want some scholarship, like, you really go in. And it's about clarity, you know what I'm saying, and quality more than quantity, you know what I'm saying? Because this is a real thing, and there are solutions and remedies that actually work, and people actually know what they talk about and how to get through the confusion, but you first got to know what that is and how it got that way, because the niggas that's orchestrating it don't even know. They're knowing aspects in it, and these are brilliant people. Yet ego has manifested in such a way that it's become a fetch of a bonfire of the vanities. You know what I'm saying? And that's okay. And as a member of the community and an observer, just like all of you, when you talk about it, I only get to talk about it like this with those that I come in contact with, especially in venues like this. If the substantial value as being brought, like I said, from Super Heru of anything, I want it to be the fact that it is something and it's all leading to something. And that there is clarity in what's going on, and that the historical view that they've given us globally of the world is not true. And no matter how many historians, no matter how many black people, and Muslims, and these people, foreigners, want to come and tell me it's different, I know what it is. And it's manner, and I can show and prove it in everybody's culture. There's no place you can go on this planet and not find an image of somebody that looked like somebody like me
or you or us. You can't say that about them. And those images that's there is only modern. That's all Smithsonian gourmet propaganda put up and propped up around ancient structures to make you and give themselves a fake history. And all of the actors in Hollywood and all of the people, they all in on it. And they all know, and they all don't give a damn because they all serve the same devil. And that's cool. So when you say that the white man is the devil, what you're really saying is that materialism in a modern sense with a Caucasian face is the devil. Because materialism says that you're not enough unless you're down with it, and it's not enough for you to get unless you're getting it. God says, here it is. So everything that these people from the 9 to the 7 to the 1 to the devil itself are all derelict deities that are static in their energy. They can't produce anything themselves, so they got to use and subsist off other people. And the more people fuck with them, the more they become like that. So your nationality is your sexuality. It is your intellectuality. It is your sensuality. It's all connected because national comes from nature or nature. Understand? So it's your natural view. So when you came out and you started, you wasn't necessarily into that. You became into that based upon whatever post-hypnotic suggestion or whatever trauma was given to you. That's not me generalizing that all gay people and people who deal with that came from that, but in a lot of cases that I've found, been just that. So if it's happened more than 3 times, you meet people and that comes up, you know that is a consistent aspect, and this person has had to break through or deal with whatever entity was implanted in them. Therefore, self-knowledge is paramount. So like I said, those people that want to get in on the game and really see what's really going on, separate back, holler at us at houseofel at hotmail.com. Check out www.Aseer.com on related DVDs that we've built on these subjects and others. You could also go to www.darkskull418 to get the novel written and drawn by myself. Aseer the Dugateers. Also, please check out the soundtrack mixtape album DS418 on iTunes under the name Team Cordoba, TEAMCORDOBA. It's a 13-track banger. Myself and the Queen, Selena the Empress, 10,000 Years. Black Hawkers on it. You'll really love it. And again, holler at us through Facebook at Aseer Ali Cordoba. That's ASEER, 1S, ASEER, 1S, 2 E's, 1 R. And again, thank you for coming through. Thank you for honoring us and building on us. Respect and praises and prayers and well wishes put out to all of those affected by the declaration of war that this government has put on the world and the planet. And may the true and living God, soul of the world, manifest through us to find a way and work together to make it happen. Because they already lost and they know it. All right? Peace.